Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole and it's by user Deleted. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife it's her own fault for not getting invited on a group trip? My wife, 31 female, and I, 32 male, have been together for about 6 years. We get along wonderfully and through everything have never had any major fights except for one thing. I personally feel like my wife makes no effort to get along with my friends. Now, to give context, all my friends and I went to the same university for undergrad. 3 guys and 3 girls that are married. My wife is the only one that did not have this common trait of attending undergrad with us, which is really not a big deal if you ask me. Early on in our relationship, my friends would always try to be friendly to her and talk to her when we would mutually hang out. My wife was cordial, but you could tell that she was uncomfortable. I would speak to her about this, and she would always comment that she was an outsider to all of us. This always personally made me slightly miffed because I felt that my friends always made an effort to include her and make sure that she wasn't singled out. Throughout the years, my wife would attend events with me, but would seem distant and would sometimes skip group events to hang out with her college friends if she had something else planned. My friends never said anything, but were always nice and treated her kindly. Well, this week I got a group text from my friends about planning a group vacation somewhere next year. I quickly noticed my wife wasn't on the group text and asked about it. I got a call from one of my friends who basically said that they didn't invite my wife because based on all the previous interactions, they didn't think she would want to attend. And even if she did want to attend, her attitude is crappy and they don't want it to ruin the vacation. I thanked my friend for his honesty and told him I'd think about it. And while I love my wife, I figured she more than likely wouldn't want to go on a vacation with them. So I told my wife about the trip and she asked about the details. I told her that while I was invited, she wasn't. And it wasn't because of anything she did, but because they thought she wouldn't want to attend. Well, this statement just seemed to be about how she is an outsider. She said that because of the history we 7 had together, she had no chance of ever being a part of the group. She then went on a rant about how my friends are awful people and that she deserved to be invited even if she didn't want to be there because she is my wife. I sat there and listened to her vent, and then finally I calmly told her that it was pretty much her own fault for not being invited because she had taken such a hostile stance with them from the get-go. She became a self-fulfilling prophecy about being an outsider. That's paraphrasing, but something along those lines. She left the house and went to her mother's. I haven't spoken to her in several days despite texts and phone calls to try and talk to her. I probably should have been more diplomatic about what I said, but I do feel my friends have been treated unfairly. Am I the a-hole? Well, OP, I would totally understand if you were talking about someone you are casually dating or not even in the committed part of the relationship yet. But in this case, your super awesome friends are excluding your wife. And you're just sitting there thinking, yeah, that seems fair. My wife kinda sucks, so she shouldn't be invited. What the hell, man? Do you want to stay married? Yes, you're the a-hole for this. As soon as that friend of yours that you talked to told you that your wife's attitude is crappy and that they don't want her to be with them during the vacation but that you're invited, you should have said, alright, screw you, we're done here, bye. Now, you think your wife deserves this because, well, she's not so connected with your friends and whenever you guys have get-togethers, but she also has plans from before, she skips your get-togethers to comply with the plans that she had before. And honestly, OP, that doesn't sound to me like she's skipping out on activities with you guys. She already had plans, so she was just being responsible and keeping her word to the people that she committed to first. Anyways, OP, if you want to stay married in your relationship and not be an a-hole, then you gotta talk to your wife and try to fix this situation. Because as of this point, yes, you are the a-hole. And what do you guys think about this whole situation? What is your judgment? Let me know in the comments section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. Bop do up says, you're the a-hole for not declining the event when they made it clear your wife wasn't invited. It's all couples, all spouses, except her. You can call it a self-fulfilling prophecy if you like, but they really are proving exactly what she's feared all along. That you not only didn't defend your wife, but thanked the friend who spelled out why she wasn't invited is the definition of yikes. Also, want to call out this line, quote, "She would sometimes skip group events to hang out with her college friends if she had something else planned," end quote. If she had something else planned, she didn't skip your events, she had plans, with the equivalent group to the one you had plans with. Random user 71 says, "You are the a-hole. This is your wife. She absolutely has been an outsider since day one. You had 4 years of life and inside jokes with these people before her, and it was your responsibility to help her fit in. You said your friends were nice to her, but there's inclusion and there's pity nice. How's the weather type of nice. I felt the same as your wife in my past relationship. Felt like he had a second life I was excluded from. He blamed me for not fitting in too, but he did nothing to help, just left me with the other females of the group. I'm so glad that relationship ended. If you want to keep your wife, you need to make drastic changes." Daligeri says, "I've seen this situation hundreds of times and been a part of it on either side quite often. Honestly, your friends made the effort dozens of times it seems. Every single time your wife would be there, from what it sounds like, they did make the most effort they could to talk to her. But you can't talk to someone who isn't willing to. Otherwise, it's like pulling teeth and conversation seems forced into shallow subjects of how's the weather, how's the job, etc. If you constantly make yourself an outsider in situations, you are going to be an outsider. That being said, she is your wife and your friends know you two should be a package deal. Even if they don't like it, it's still a courtesy to extend the invitation to your wife as well. Everybody sucks here, and OP, I think in the future, or even now, you are probably facing a harsh reality and decision that will more than likely come down to your friends or your wife." Additional information from OP's comments. "I did express my concerns to my friends about how my wife would take it, but the response was that they were standing on not inviting her. I feel like I personally make an effort to hang out with her friends and their significant others. For instance, my wife loves to golf, and while I'm not super into it, during the summer I will go out with her friend and her husband who enjoy doing it because I know she enjoys it. I don't feel the same reciprocation. Her friends are nice to me. That's never been an issue. My friends have always been polite to my wife. As I said in the post, it's been 6 years and she has been invited to essentially everything with this group. She sometimes doesn't come out because she has plans with her friends or just doesn't want to go, but she will generally at least come out and say hi to everyone. However, she has always said that she wished she had gone to undergrad with us, so she felt like she could be a part of the group, but it was impossible for her to fit in even though everyone liked her. Well, OP, it sounds like this everyone liked her part that you just mentioned was in your imagination because your friends are actively not inviting her to a group vacation. Anyways, the community says that OP is not the a-hole in general and there are some everybody sucks here sprinkled here and there. So it's that time that we move on to the update to see how this story ends, but of course I gotta show you another playlist like this one that only has stories with updates on them. Go check it out. Now let's move on with the update. Hi, I have gotten some people asking for an update, so I figured I'd give one. I deleted my original post because holy cow, I got some nasty messages from y'all. Some of which I'll say I deserved and others were just absolutely horrid. But hey, I asked for advice and had to deal with it. As for the raking over the coals I received in the comments, you guys were right. A lot of your comments rang true and made me realize how much of an a-hole I was being to my wife. I don't have any excuse for what I was thinking previously, but it was wrong. And at that moment, I realized that without intervention on my part, I was going to lose my wife. Hell, even with intervention, there was still a chance I would lose her. It was a giant wake-up call to myself of how I was treating someone I loved and cared about. How could I be so callous and cold? Well, I started with a phone call and a text to her. I stated the same in both, that I would not be attending the trip, that when she was ready to talk, I would be at home waiting, and that I was more sorry than I could ever be. I wouldn't be bugging her again until she was ready. So, what happened in the first weekend following everything? It was radio silence for about 2 days, which I spent the entirety of pretty much shutting off from the world. But my wife pulled into the driveway mid-afternoon and came into the house. I could tell she was on the verge of tears, and so was I. She said she wanted to have a serious talk about us and our relationship, and it would likely be a rest of the day conversation. So I let her speak. The first conversations were about requirements for our relationship to have to be met to even potentially salvage it. 1. Couples counseling. 2. I would not be friends with my old college friends. Sans one couple which will be relevant shortly. 3. And more effort and love from me. I know many commenters said in my post that they didn't think I loved my wife, but I do. I seriously do. She's amazing and I wouldn't have married her if I didn't love her, so of course I agreed. She made it clear to me that even if I did do all these things, it didn't guarantee she would stay. I told her I understood and that all I could do was try and make up for what I could. I then asked why I would be allowed to remain friends with the one couple, we'll call them J and K, and she told me that after the text about her being not invited came out and my dumbass response, J and K reached out to her. They apparently hadn't been told of this plan and the two other couples had sprung it on them. When I responded about thinking about still going, they were pretty upset with my response and reached out to her to make sure she was okay. They had texts to back up them not knowing about her not being invited and texts reaming out the other two couples for doing this. They didn't text me or let me know anything because they were upset with me too, rightly so. The conversation went on for several more hours, lots of tears, but it did end with a hug. So where does that bring us today? In the months since the incident and while things are not fully healed, I would say we are headed in the right direction. Couples counseling has been something I wished I would have done earlier and has been very eye-opening to many of my behaviors. My wife also has said that it has been useful to her as well, especially regarding our friendships. One of the main things I have learned is that I was not as open as I thought I was with my wife's friends. Hell, she could have written the same post about me and it would have been correct. While I was nice, was I putting in any effort? Was I actively engaging with the group? How could I hold my wife to a standard that I myself wasn't even meeting with her friends? It was like a lightning bolt to my head of how I had been acting. My wife also admitted that she was closed off to the group and that while she was friendly, she and I had many of the same behaviors with each other's friends. I've tried to remedy that and have been actively working to be more engaged and social with her friends. I've even started golfing on my own with one of her friend's husbands, and I think she appreciates the effort on that end. I've also noticed that in hanging with J and K, she's been much more outgoing and willing to talk with them and engage in conversation. It isn't lost on me that this is likely due to the other two couples being awful people that she didn't talk to previously, but I do greatly enjoy being able to spend time with my wife and my friends. About the couples that planned the trip, I have talked to them once since, and it was a quick phone call to call my ex-friend, where I basically said I was going to go no contact if an apology was not issued to my wife. A half-assed sorry was given, but obviously done just to try and appease me. I haven't spoken to them since, and they haven't reached out to me. Good riddance. As for how my wife and I are, we are good. While I don't think I'll truly ever know how much I hurt her with my statements, I feel lucky that I've been given the chance to make amends. I gave her a small kiss on the cheek at an outing with J and K the other night. It's been the first sign of intimacy in a while, and my heart skipped a beat when she looked at me and smiled. It's a long road, and I consider myself lucky that I have been given an extra opportunity considering the circumstances I put our relationship in. And hell, maybe in a month she decides that she has had enough, and I would only have myself to blame if that happens. But for the moment, I have started the process to rebuild my marriage and focus on the woman I love and owe a lot to. She is an amazing person, and I thank God I get the opportunity to try and learn from my experiences and become a better husband for her. Thanks for listening, y'all. Well, OP, this sounds like a happy update in the making. You dropped the dead weight of the bad friends, and apparently you kept the good ones, J and K. It was awesome for them to talk to your wife and see how she was doing and that they didn't like this whole thing. Good on them. Anyways, OP, all the best in the future in trying to fix your marriage, and thank you so much for sharing. Take care. Now, let's finish this video with a mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance, and it's by user Bleeny Houdini. They wanted to start messing with the cat that I told them not to. This happened about 4 years ago, and I still laugh about it to this day. My older cousin had a cat named Tara when she was younger. Tara was a total loose screw, and she would bite and scratch anyone who so much looked at her funny. And don't get me started when you dare to disturb her sleeping. Never mess with Tara when she's sleeping. Tara only felt comfortable around my cousin and me. She liked me because I usually helped my cousin feed her, because I wanted to know what it was like taking care of a cat as I want my own. Plus, I was already close with my cousin. Now, here is where it gets good. My aunt and uncle were having a little family gathering, and they decided to invite some of their close friends. Among them were their demonic kids, Mini Bigfoot, 6, and Mini Yeti, 5. Those two couldn't sit still or shut up for at least a second, and the parents just let it all happen. They would use the excuse, "They don't know any better." They probably would if you set a boundary or something at least. So while they're downstairs terrorizing the adults and anyone else who was brave and patient enough to be in the same room as them, my cousin, her friend, and I all just chilled upstairs. They both are talking about some stuff with school and all that nonsense that I didn't bother listening to. They both leave the room to go run a few errands and buy some more cat toys, as Tara had demolished the previous one. So now I'm left in the room alone with a little fur ball that's curled up on the bed having a damn good nap. Then I hear the sounds of rapid footsteps, and I didn't need to peek out to see what it was. Both gremlins walk in the room and immediately point out all the drawings on the walls of Nintendo characters. My cousin loves Nintendo. Then little Mini Bigfoot has to point out that there's a fluffy kitty on the bed. They reach over to pet her, and I inch their hands away and tell them to not disturb her. For some background, I already had a bad beef with these two because when they were at our house, Mini Yeti pulled my dog's ears and tail constantly and wouldn't stop. Mini Yeti starts to whine about how much she loves cats and she wants to cuddle the itty bitty kitty. I told her that Tara hates when her sleep is disturbed, and they still wouldn't go away. They went downstairs to tell their parents, and they told me, "Let them pet the cat, it's not even yours and it's just a cat." I tried to reason with them, and even my aunt and uncle sided with me, but they still wouldn't understand as they swore it was just a regular house cat. I walked back upstairs and suddenly I got a huge grin on my face. I told the kids that they can go and play with the cat, and they started laughing at me and taunting me. But soon the tables would turn. They went inside the room and I camped outside the door. For about 5 seconds, I could just hear the "wow" from one of the kids. Then it finally came. An ear-piercing hiss and loud meow followed by a distant sound of clothes stretching and gremlins screaming. They both sprinted out of the room crying, and the Mini Bigfoot had a big scratch down his right arm. Little Yeti had it worse as her nice pink t-shirt was absolutely ripped and there were more scars going down her arm. Their parents were furious at me and commanded me down the stairs to scold me. They asked how could I let that cat scratch their children like that and not do anything about it. I was gonna say something, but then my dad's face went white as he pointed at the stairs. We looked and guess what we saw? At the top of the stairs, Tara was right there with her tail hunched back and her ears folded flat against her head. To add that, the lights upstairs were off so her eyes were glowing. The dad of the two kids thought it is good to punish a cat that wasn't his, so he marched up the stairs while staring down at Tara. Bad move because Tara then leaped off the stairs and landed right on the dude's back and cut a huge gash in his shirt in the process. She then climbed off and just went back up the stairs and slept again, like she didn't just almost murder a whole family. When my cousin got back, we told her about the story and she was mad at first. She started to laugh when we mentioned her cat wasn't injured. Tara got a nice plate of tuna for dinner and a good back rub as a reward. Well, hopefully the kids and their dad learned a lesson. Don't bother animals when they're sleeping. Eesh. Thank you for sharing, OP. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out, so here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later, and also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.